Okay, we're up. We are ready. Perfect. Thank you for joining me. Today, we are going to talk about imposter syndrome and how we can overcome it so that we can elevate our confidence and flourish at work. My name is Michelle Holmes. I am a workplace wellness consultant, author, speaker, and podcast host of the Flourish podcast. Please let me know if you've tuned in to hear our podcast with my co-host Devin and I. I'm a dog mom, stepmom, wife, and recovering workaholic. So I know a little something about imposter syndrome. And today I want to take you through a couple of things so that you can find a lot of value out of this presentation. So we'll talk about how imposter syndrome shows up for us, what is at the root of imposter syndrome for us, what's driving that forward, and then what healing entails for us. I have a couple things at the very end. One of them is a free worksheet download that you'll have access to, and then an announcement. So we'll have time to go over that and a Q&A as well. So what is imposter syndrome? When I was putting together this presentation, I found some things that I did not agree with, some ideas that people had that I just completely disagree with. So I'm going to say what imposter syndrome is not to get us started. So imposter syndrome is not fear of success. I know that you may have heard that before, but I just want to kind of start from the ground level here. As human beings, we're not really truly afraid of being successful. It might look like that, but we're not afraid of success when it comes to true success. We're not afraid of doing well. We're not afraid of having a life that makes us proud. There can be a lot that clouds that judgment and that looks like, oh, there's a fear of success, or we're fearful of what people might think of us, or we're fearful of having good things in our life. You know, all of these things can definitely play a role, but the baseline is imposter syndrome is not a fear of success. Imposter syndrome is also not fake it till you make it. I think this is some of the worst advice out there. Fake it till you make it can be so isolating for people. It's just not real. It's not genuine. I pride myself on being a genuine person, and so I don't agree or buy into you got to fake it till you make it and imposter syndrome showing up in that way. We're going to get into what it actually is, and we'll see kind of how this fake it till you make it plays a role as well. And imposter syndrome is not self-sabotage. So this kind of goes along with the first one of fear of being successful. And I disagree with that fear of being successful for us, but also we're not self-sabotaging and enjoying that self-sabotage. I wrote a post on this a while back about self-sabotage and what it really is. So I'm happy to send that to you. Feel free to comment. I can share the link in the comments. But imposter syndrome is not us just continually self-sabotaging. Let's talk about what is imposter syndrome. Okay, so imposter syndrome can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. So if you're here, I think that most of us, when we are experiencing imposter syndrome, we can relate to having these feelings, having these doubts, doubting our abilities, maybe feeling like a fraud, even though we have been successful before in some way, even though we may have a really great job, or we might have some of the markers or the metrics of what success is. We have experienced success on whatever level, because we haven't really ended up anywhere by accident, so to speak, but we're still feeling like we have inadequacy. So this shows up in a few different ways. I put together this, I guess, chart here with all the different ways that I see this show up for people. We'll start at the top with being overcommitted, making all of these commitments, not being able to say no, then feeling resentful and having that resentment build up for us. Burnout, this one is huge. I talk a lot about burnout, and there's many drivers for burnout. Low self-esteem, depression, comparing ourselves to others, which we'll talk about, procrastination, playing it safe, perfectionism. Those are kind of like on two separate sides of playing it safe versus everything's got to be perfect. High performers, it shows up in high performers, absolutely. And most of the people that resonate with my content would consider themselves a high performer, which is why I said in this definition here that a lot of us have had success. Because most of the people that I'm working with and speaking to, they do consider themselves a high performer, and I would consider them that as well. They do a lot. They're the movers and the shakers. They get things done. So it's not that they've just automatically gotten themselves in some position that they're completely, truly unqualified for. You know, they have that measure of building up or even being deserving of the role that they have. Anxiety, self-criticism, and of course, self-doubt. So let me know if any of that resonates with you, and let's go a level deeper. And if all of this is kind of resonating so far, just feel free to put like imposter in the comments so I know that you are picking up what I am putting down. So if we go a level deeper, we can look at some limiting beliefs. And this is big for people because the limiting beliefs that show up specific to imposter syndrome are some of these that I have put here, which is I don't deserve blank. I don't deserve recognition or success or money. And having that belief driving us, that's a core belief that we've developed. Another is I am unworthy. This can be I am unworthy of the role or the position that I'm in. I'm unworthy of the, if we say we don't deserve recognition, we might feel that we don't deserve it because we're unworthy of that recognition. I'm not good enough. I don't have the qualifications. This is a big one for people because they're constantly chasing the next. And I know for me as a coach and consultant, I felt like I needed to go back to school, get a master's degree, do all of these different things. And eventually, over the course of my career and transitioning into what I do now, I had to really take a good look at, well, what am I lacking that I actually do need the education for and the experience, of course, but what is the opposite of that, where it's just a story of, well, if I had more letters behind my name, then I'd feel like I deserved it, or I felt like if I just had the fancy degrees and everything, which I have a mechanical engineering degree, so I have a degree, and I've gone down the degree and the college route before, but it's like even that wasn't enough. It was more and more and more. My value is based on my contribution. I should know all the answers. This is us feeling like we shouldn't make a mistake and that we should already know. So I know for me, feeling like I was right out of college in my first big girl job and I should know all the answers. I shouldn't have to ask any questions if I was unclear about something. And so not really giving myself that realistic expectation and the compassion as well, that we don't have to know everything. There's experts and even they don't know everything. I have to be good at everything I do, or I have to be good at this, and it must be perfect. So lots of perfectionism with some of the people who really struggle with imposter syndrome. So if any of these resonate with you, please feel free to put them in the chat. And if you want more information on limiting beliefs, because I know that's like a pretty surface level kind of deal, I do have a training that I've done already on limiting beliefs. It's not a public training, so I'd have to send it to you. Please reach out and let me know if you need me to send it to you. I'd be happy to. But let's just give a bit more context for the limiting beliefs and how this plays a role. So a limiting belief, I like to use this visual, is basically the rose-colored glasses. And rose-colored glasses, I know that's kind of like the connotation of seeing everything in this light, in this positive light, right? We might be feeling like something's better than it actually is. Well, let's just call it colored glasses, because when we have a limiting belief, we're putting on those glasses here like they're doing, and we're seeing the world through this lens. So we're having these experiences that all of us go through experiences. All of us learn from those experiences, either something good, something not so good, and we begin to see the world in this new way. And we don't really take the glasses off because it's an unconscious way, it's an unconscious perspective, right? Until we really bring it to our awareness, we don't know that our learnings have impacted how we see the world. So a limiting belief is a thought, opinion, state of mind, or conviction you believe to be absolutely true, but that belief holds you back in some way. So it's a limit. It's this limiting belief. So these are subconscious patterns. We're not aware of them until we are aware of them. And the way that we become aware of them is we have to do the work to bring them up to our consciousness. So let's dive in a little bit more here. So we have this imposter syndrome, these feelings of inadequacy. And then we have the limiting beliefs that are under there. So the things that are driving our feelings of inadequacy, those are the lenses that we see the world through, these limiting beliefs, these core beliefs based on experiences. And what those experiences are is this painful past learning, also known as trauma. So our beliefs stem from a strong desire to keep us safe and away from the painful past learning experience. So our belief, I'll give you an example just right off the bat here. Let's say we had a dad who would always come home late from work. He was always in a bad mood. He would always have a really tight grasp on money, and he would always complain about his work. Well, as a little kid, if that's our reality, then we are beginning to see the world and make these notions about the world through that lens of, we might believe that work is really hard, or work is not to be enjoyed, or we have to really just spend so much time at work, so many hours put in order to receive a good paycheck or in order to get that promotion. Maybe we see our father valuing work above family time. So then we see work takes away from family time. And then how do we go about our life? Well, we don't really identify that that was our experience when we were 6 years old, but we go through and we make these decisions based on that being our belief. So we're working 80 hours and we're thinking that we have to continue to get that promotion or we're unworthy of that. We're not finding the thing that sets our heart on fire. We're feeling bad about the work and the responsibilities that we have because that's what we have been exposed to. That's just one example. Everyone, of course, has different painful past learning, but I wanted to give you a little bit something tangible there so you can see and understand more fully what I'm saying here. So I had mentioned trauma regarding the painful past learning, and I just want to clarify here because we have big T trauma that most people think of, and then we have little t trauma. So big T trauma, of course, we have these life-changing incidents, these experiences like war, accidents, natural disasters, neglect, assault, violence, right? We are having these experiences that not all of us have. Not every single person has been exposed to parental neglect, right? Or violence in the home. These are big T traumas. When we think about trauma, it's very easy for us to think about this. It's also very easy for us to say, oh no, I don't have any trauma because I don't have the big T trauma. On the flip side, we have little t trauma, and these are things that seem, in the grand scheme, of course, when we're comparing it to something like war, seem a lot smaller, but still impact us. And I would say every single person who lives, especially with being exposed to social media now and going through middle school, has some level of experienced this little t trauma, these painful past learnings. So sometimes I refer to it as trauma, sometimes I say painful past learning. It's all really the same, but some examples here: divorce, a breakup that was really hard. Maybe that was for your parents, or maybe it was something that you went through yourself. Betrayal from a partner or a friend or a teacher. Shame. Many of us, I don't know a single person who hasn't experienced shame on some level. Loss of a loved one or a pet. Humiliation. These things are the learning experiences that we carry with us. Okay, so it's not just also what happened to us, it's also what didn't happen to us. Let me say that again. Trauma is not just what happened to us, the big T trauma, the little t traumas, but also what didn't happen to us. So maybe we needed something that we didn't receive. Maybe we went through an experience that was incredibly difficult and we didn't have anyone there to help us or guide us or to support us in that experience, right? That can be very isolating. So how does trauma play a role in the context of what we're talking about here? So trauma is our driver of our limiting beliefs. So our limiting beliefs are always rooted in this painful past learning. These experiences that we've had. So think about the experience with our parents, with our dad and his experience with work. So that is a driver for us. This could also be something that we have not been exposed to directly, but that we have heard about or that we have seen in the secondary nature, that can still drive limiting beliefs. So we want to avoid experiencing pain or discomfort. That is a baseline just human fact. We want to avoid experiencing that pain or discomfort. And so we make decisions, we have reactions, we have a whole biological system, that's our nervous system, that is wired to help us stay safe and avoid the pain and discomfort. This plays a role in imposter syndrome. This also leads us to overfunction or underfunction. So overfunctioning looks like a lot of what I think people can relate to is high performance. We're perfectionists. We're not allowing any room for mistakes. We're very hard on ourselves. The bar is set very high. We may also feel like we have to fake it till we make it. We drive ourselves into a burnout state. We're going, and we may be people pleasing. So these are some examples of what overfunctioning looks like. Underfunctioning is also a driver here, but it looks a little bit different. So we're underestimating ourselves. We're playing it safe. We might feel like we are struggling with depression. We're not living up to our full potential. We're not even trying, right? In regards to the nervous system, we have as an overfunctioning, we have the fight or the flight activating. When we have the underfunctioning, for a lot of this, it's kind of like the freeze state. And so, yeah, depression really is like this manifestation of that freeze state for us. We're not making decisions. So what is driving imposter syndrome? I have a couple things I want to go through with you here. Number one is attuning to others versus attuning to ourselves. So attuning to others. This is showing up as they will find out or they will know that I'm a fraud, and having that really big concern that other people are going to know that we shouldn't be here. We are highly attuned to other people and what do they think of me? What's their opinion of me? What are they saying behind my back? Do they think I'm successful? Am I making them happy? Attuning to others is a coping mechanism, basically, for keeping us safe that happens during the development as children. We have to be attuned to other people. When you are an infant, you have to be attuned to your caregiver, and you're going to make your decisions across your lifetime with that experience with these other people. When you are a newborn, your survival depends on other people. And so we are biologically wired to attune to others. But sometimes as we develop, and we don't need to, I'm not going to say we don't need to attune to others, because we absolutely do. We're social people. We need to connect. We need to be engaged. However, there's this factor of self-trust and self-reliance and even self-confidence. And so when it's time to make that transition, even baby steps there, sometimes we're stuck in worrying about what other people think and putting their needs above our own. Attuning to ourselves looks like, well, what do I think of myself? What would make me successful in my own eyes? We talk about this on the Flourish podcast all the time, because it's all about finding success on our own terms. What I think is successful versus what you think are successful do not have to match up in any way, right? But we need to be successful in our own eyes. And also, where do I feel discomfort and why? So when we attune to ourselves, we are able to cultivate that self-reliance, that self-respect, and release that which is not our own. So other people's expectations versus ours is a prime example. Feeling like we are deceiving others is another one for this imposter syndrome manifesting for us. We are feeling like we are, here, let me just go this way so you're not distracted. We're feeling like we are deceiving others, like we shouldn't be here. We should not be in this role, or we have all these followers, and if they only knew how our life really looked, like social media is not real, all of that. So we have this feeling, and that's a really icky feeling. So sometimes this feeling is coming from being overpraised. So overpraised as a child brings about things like, okay, I'm deceiving others because my parents are so stoked on the littlest things. This doesn't feel genuine to me, right? We're picking up on that. We may have the person who's like, oh my gosh, you are the best there ever was. This is the best painting I've ever seen. This is so cool. You're the best. You're the best. And as a child, we're pretty smart, and we can pick up on, okay, is this genuine or is this some BS here? So we might feel like we are deceiving others because it's not a genuine, deserved recognition. We can easily see from our own two eyes that from our perspective, our friend's painting is worlds better than ours. And so then we kind of start to internalize that a little bit. Being overpraised also does not have continuity in the real world. So what that looks like is in the real world, we are not getting, you're the best, this is so good all the time. And so that can be kind of like a little bit jolting for us. We end up feeling less than. If that's what we're used to, we end up feeling like, why am I no longer getting that? I need that. I need that validation. We may think I am not acceptable unless I am great. And of course, we begin to tie receiving love to achievement. If one of our primary ways of getting affection from the people in our life, our loved ones, is through being praised and doing good work, then we are internalizing that that's what we have to do in order to receive the love of the people around us. Underpraised is on the other side of we're not receiving this positive feedback from people in our life. So our efforts and our accomplishments are not recognized, and they should have been, right? Especially from caregivers and loved ones. So the bar isn't set, but moved to an unrealistic expectation. So we're comparing ourselves to others. We are feeling inadequate. We're feeling shame. We're feeling perfectionism. We're feeling like we have to do so much more in order to get the love that we didn't receive when we should have. So this brings us to unrealistic expectations. So far, we've been talking a lot about the experiences we've been through. We've been talking a lot about the painful past learning, kind of the psychological piece of this, right? These experiences and how that affects us throughout our development. All of that is great, but I also could not do this presentation without also talking about a very real thing, which is our expectations are sometimes ridiculous for ourselves. So the unrealistic expectations may be placed on us by caregivers, by loved ones, by teachers outside of our development. So they want us to be able to do something, and we can't do that. We shouldn't have to do that. Like, we're not able to do that. Or it's an unrealistic expectation that's placed on ourselves as a byproduct of this, or a drive to please, to be accepted, to be loved, etc. So we have set the bar really high as a way of trying to earn respect, love, whatever it may be. And our unrealistic expectations, of course, can be rooted in this comparison to others. So social media is huge for this. Social media will let us think that our friend is doing amazing, and we don't see the conversations that are happening behind closed doors. We don't see the struggle. We don't see the hours or the years of work that led up to this. So we have an unrealistic expectation of how we should be operating, and we're not reaching the bar that we have set, or that someone else has set for us, that has influenced where we know the bar to be. So an example, why can't you be more like your sister? If you heard that growing up, that can be something that has certainly influenced this, and that's painful past learning right there. Why did your classmate get that award and not you? So why aren't you as good as your classmate? Teachers expecting you to meet a standard expectation. So maybe there's an expectation that everyone is just expected to meet, but not everyone has the background or the resources to actually meet that. So Johnny should be on par with Sarah, but Johnny doesn't have the parental support like Sarah does. You know, Johnny is scavenging for food when Sarah is sitting at the kitchen table in a warm house with her family doing her homework. So having that expectation to meet something that doesn't take into account our humanness and our experience as well. These can all be drivers of like this painful past learning. So lastly is our environment. So this kind of switches gears a little bit as well when it comes to the workplace specifically. So this idea of fake it till you make it, you know, I said I hate this, but this fake it till you make it truly prioritizes you being confident versus you being competent. And so when we're saying we're faking it till we're making it, and we're taking that advice, we're hearing that advice. I know for me personally, in the line of work that I do, which is being an online entrepreneur and a consultant, there has been a lot of business advice that I have seen over the years. And a lot of that business advice is fake it till you make it. So that is in my environment. And so that's prioritizing this confidence over competence. Of course, that's going to be an issue for us. We know genuinely that we're not competent. In that case, we kind of should be feeling like an imposter, because we are an imposter. If we're saying that we've done something that we've never done, of course we feel like an imposter. So these things in our environment influence how we feel as well, and some of the maybe trends that we're following. So on that note, industry trends and cues about inequity within the workplace. This, of course, deserves a mention here. Not everything is equal in the workplace at all times for all people. And so having those cues about, this kind of goes with the next one, which is these subtle or even overt narratives about who should be doing this, or who should be working at the company, who should be getting the promotion. What do those people look like? How do they act? How do they feel? What sacrifices have they made? right? So we are being influenced by these cues that we're hearing and seeing and experiencing in our workplace, around us, in our environment. Basically, it's the whole "you can't sit with us." So, coming from Mean Girls, you can't sit with us, right? You don't fit in. And so that can also drive us feeling like an imposter as well. Okay, so clearing out imposter syndrome. So I want to give you some actionable things that you can do to move in the right direction, because if you've spent this much time with me already, I know that you are dedicated to actually doing something about this, right? I know that you're experiencing enough pain that you're like, okay, yep, imposter syndrome, not that cool. Let's see if we can change that. So here with this this GIF, I don't know if it's GIF or GIF, either way, I think of like GIF peanut butter, but I think it's GIF. Here is, as long as I keep moving and stay busy, it'll keep my mind off the pain. Well, that's only going to cut it for so long. So now we're actually going to take some action here. So I've provided a roadmap to overcoming this imposter syndrome. And this is a 3-part, it actually has, I think, 4 steps. But the first is connect. The second is clarify, and the third is intention. So there is a download that goes along with this, because if you want, for me personally, I know imposter syndrome doesn't just happen one time, and there's a reason it's like, okay, these gathering of feelings. So we're going to be experiencing this in little and big ways over the course of our life, of our career, of the near future, if this is something we're really trying to work on. So I want you to be able to download these steps. So there's this tinyurl.com/imposter no more. That will give you your worksheet. You can download, you can reference, please use it. Don't share it and duplicate it and put it all out there, because I made it for you. But use that download, because it's reiterating everything that we're talking about in this next section. Okay. Step 1 is doing a body scan. So I want you to be able to connect with your physical body. In the work that I do, this is a very important step. We must connect with our physical body. It's all related. Our physical and our mental and our spiritual and our emotional are all connected. So we cannot just be all up here all the time, thinking, coming up with a plan, doing all of this. We have to connect with our physical experience. So the way that we do this is doing a body scan and asking ourselves, so we might close our eyes, and from the top of our head to the tips of our toes, we are going to identify, where am I feeling tension or discomfort? There's also a whole plethora of other feelings that we might be experiencing that don't feel like we are at ease. So it might be rumbling, it might be pulsing, it might be like a rubber band that's like really wrapped up all tight and everything. Where are we feeling that? Where are we not soft and relaxed? So we're going to take that moment. We're going to check in. So a perfect example here is the next time that you feel like you have these symptoms of imposter syndrome coming up, then the first thing I want you to do is this body scan. The second thing is softening. So you've done the scan, you're connecting here. This is something that we have to be intentional about. Our muscles don't just soften because we want them to soften. We have to go through and release that tension. So we soften and relax the tension. This will allow us to be far more clear up here in our brains when we go ahead and do this, because this is the connection of our biological stress system to our physical body and our mind are connected. That's how we are wired. So we want to be able to soften and relax. So the same way that I did a body scan from the top of my head to my toes, I am going to go through and I'm going to soften. This is an exercise I want you to feel free to do 1,000,000 times a day if it takes, but becoming aware, because our body has an immense amount of wisdom for us, right? Our body has so much to tell us, so we want to soften. And after we've done that, we're probably going to feel a lot better. So then we are going to be able to clarify, because we're in this cool, calm, collected state. So I've connected, I've gone through, I've seen where's the tension feeling, where is it exactly? I've taken a breath maybe, and I'm softening. So I might think of myself as a wet noodle. And this is from Tools for Hope with the Forward Facing Institute. The wet noodle is a skill that we tell everyone about. Everyone who works with us, we tell you, become a wet noodle. So you're not that brittle spaghetti noodle anymore. You're softening, right? You're feeling better. You're feeling more comfortable. Your muscles are not tense because your structure is holding you up. Then we are able to clarify. So once we've done that, we're able to actually sort through the uncomfortable emotions, because things come up for us and we start to feel like, and our jaw feels tense and our shoulders come up like earrings, right? And we're clenching our butts. And so soften, and then we're able to actually sort through. So I have a couple questions for you to help you sort through. So what would success look like for me in this situation? Whatever you're dealing with that has brought up these uncomfortable feelings, making you feel like an imposter. What would success look like for you, from you, based on you being the genuine human being you are? What does it look like to be successful? Do you have the necessary skills or resources for this? Is this something that you've kind of like bitten off more than you can chew? And if so, let's identify that a little bit, because sometimes we have the skills and the resources that we need, and sometimes we need to develop those further, and that's okay. That we're learning and we're progressing, and none of us have all the answers at all times. Am I being compassionate with myself, or am I being unrealistic? This is a really good question for us to clarify and be honest with ourselves. Am I actually being nice to myself, or am I being really mean and not having compassion and being unrealistic? And is the bar set way too high? Because if the bar is set way too high, we can actually take action to move that down and to deal with that and be more realistic and make it so it's not so uncomfortable for us. Because I'm not saying be realistic with everything in life. Like, I'm a huge, big dreamer kind of gal. But we want to understand where there might be a gap. Okay, and then, does this remind me of anything I've already experienced? So I included this question here because of everything we talked about, the painful past learning stuff. You're probably going to have a lot to think about and consider. And so this is a good check-in. Does this remind me of anything I've already experienced? Does this remind me of middle school? I experienced anything like this in childhood, right? Does this come from a limiting belief that I have? I don't expect you to have all the answers, but I do want you to start uncovering them because, like I said, this is something that it's going to take some practice. Okay, and then step 4 is the intention. So taking action intentionally. So intention is huge with all of my work. You hear me talk about it all the time if you've seen anything I've done. So being intentional means going in the direction that you are aiming and taking the time and putting forth the energy to determine what that direction might be. So how do I hope to handle this situation here? Like if I'm at work and something is going wrong and I'm not feeling great about it, I'm going to do all of these steps. And after I check in with myself, I'm going to say, well, if this had a really good outcome, what would that look like? How do I want to be when my boss is really stressed? What do I hope for myself? What would make me proud of myself? We're giving some forethought here. We're actually thinking about, well, yeah, what would make me excited and happy, proud, feeling at ease? What's my ideal outcome? What action should I take to help my ideal outcome come to life? So if I know what would be very pleasing to me, what would make me proud of myself, what would be genuine to me, if I knew that, then what actions should I go ahead and do right now that are going to get me closer to that? Perfect example here is someone who's afraid to give a presentation or to speak in public or at work, right? Well, the ideal outcome for them might be, no, I really do want to speak. I really do want to be able to give the presentation. Okay, great. That's amazing. So if you really want to be able to give that presentation and for it to be the ideal outcome for you to rock that presentation, then what do you need to do? Right? We're not just going to fester around in our feelings. We're going to say, well, what actions should I take? Should I join Toastmasters? Should I do some test runs with my dog? Right? Should I invite my neighbor over so they can hear me and hear my presentation and tell me if it's like making sense? Right? What actions do I need to take? And then what would I do if I knew I wouldn't fail? So that's always a good check-in for ourselves to know. What would we do if we knew we could not fail? Because if we knew we couldn't fail, then that gives us a pretty good roadmap for what direction we want to go. Again, that worksheet is available for you for download, tinyurl.com/imposter no more. So I hope that with those guidelines, with that roadmap, you are going to be able to start to uncover some of the things that are necessary for you to uncover as you are trying to overcome this feelings of inadequacy, feelings of shame, feelings of undeserving, whatever that might be. We talked about a lot of what plays into this, and I know that is it's kind of like sometimes it's heavy. When I was thinking about all the things I put into this presentation, I was like, wow, this is a lot. This is a lot for people to take in. And so the takeaway for you is to just do some baby steps here, because I don't expect you to be done with this in a week. And it's going to take multiple exposures to the things in our life that we are needing to overcome as we're going. So as we're improving, as we're evolving and getting better and feeling better and putting this further and further behind us, it's going to it's not like one fell swoop and we're done with it. This is work. These painful past beliefs and these learnings did not just develop magically overnight in one day. It's been our whole life. So I invite you to approach your lived experience, the things you've been through, with compassion and curiosity. This is also included in the worksheet. So what we've been through, we can have compassion for ourselves. Those experiences that we've had, we can get curious about them. We can see, well, what did we learn? And what did we take away from that? And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It doesn't even need to be good or bad. It's just a learning, and that's okay. But let's be compassionate. Let's be curious about it. Healing will also involve creating this self-trust and developing our intuition further. This is a big one for me. Of course, I'm a woman, so I have woman's intuition. But everyone has a level of intuition and self-trust. And for me, over the years, I know on my journey, I absolutely had to cultivate this, and I had to develop it further so that it could support me in my own genuine life, my own way of being in the world. I had to cultivate that, and it started with small steps for me to trust myself a little bit here, a little bit there, prove that I could trust myself. Nothing bad was going to happen. In fact, the exact opposite, right? Even if something bad did happen, I could handle it. That speaks volumes to us. Being present to uncomfortable feelings, this softening is going to help you do that. So the uncomfortable feelings that come up instantly can activate our fight, flight, or freeze. And so we want to be able to be present to those in a way that we are more calm, collected, right? We're activating that parasympathetic nervous system. We're feeling like we can handle the grief that comes up, or we can handle the anger that comes up. We're softening that. And cultivating intentionality as well, of course. We want to live an intentional life. That's what I want for you. I don't want your life to happen by accident. And there's like a whole nother class on just having an intentional life versus a reactive life versus forcing things. But of course, I want you to be able to identify what's important to you and to then be able to go after that. That would make you feel good, and that would make the world a better place, I think. So for us, this means healing, creating a new level of safety for ourselves so that we aren't a prisoner of the past. When we really dissect what imposter syndrome is, it's like the past showing up into our present. And that's what all trauma is. Big T trauma and little t trauma is going to affect us in the present. And we can't change anything that we've been through. So we have to be able to heal in the present as well, and healing those experiences in our present. So if we go a level deeper, we get to come home to our true self, because at the core of who we are, I do think that we deserve good things. I do think that we want good things. And although we may have a lot of feelings and experiences that have impacted that, our true essence deserves good things. And I truly believe that for every single person. So we get to come home when we are healing this. We get to come home to our authentic self. So the root of true imposter syndrome for me is this disconnect from our true self and an inability to live authentically and intentionally. So for many, there's a level of anxiety, perfectionism, and painful past learning that influences this. greatly, of course. And imposter syndrome keeps us from living out our sacred life mission to the fullest. And that sacred life mission could be different for everyone, but could be as simple as finding joy, being proud of ourselves, um, helping people. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to be the next CEO of such and such company, but our imposter syndrome can keep us from really connecting and being authentic and going after what our dreams are. So we have the power to grow. We have the power to cultivate change. We can heal. We are absolutely not broken. These are some fundamentals of what my belief system is. So I'd like to ask you, what will you take action on today? Is there something that you've learned from spending the last 59 minutes with me that you can actually implement into your own life? Because like I said, it's going to take some practice. So if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn, please feel free. You can search me. My name is Michelle Holmes. If you search Michelle Holmes Flourish, I'm sure I will come up a million times with all of my posts. And if you need further support, please get on my email list. I am going to be sending information on some ways that I can, on things that I'm rolling out. So I'm working on a couple of things right now, ways that are very accessible to work together, ways that are focusing on implementation as well, focusing on practicing this in real life. So if you need some, I wouldn't say hand holding exactly, because you got to do the work. But if you want someone to guide you in some of this, what we've already talked about here, I have some things that are coming, and I'd love to tell you about them on my email list. I also do more free trainings, so you'll get notifications about that as well. You can sign up in the same place that you can download the worksheet, and you'll be set. Thank you, my friends, so much for joining me. And if you have any questions, please drop them below. I'd be happy to get back to you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll talk to you